Hello everyone, Mark Sajan again, and today we will deal with ZRemesher and how to create geometry from your existing model. Now, this is the model I have, and this was actually a modified uh, Dynamesh model. So I was working on, as you see, we have these imperfections, and it's quite a detailed one, but I have no subdivision levels, and this is not a proper mesh for example. It's not really good for posing, it's not really good for painting. It is a great base mesh, so all the fingers and everything is there, but if I want to get to the next level, I have to recalculate the mesh and build up the subdivision levels and everything like that. So right now this is just a single set. Now first of all, whenever you are performing a ZRemesher operation, the best idea if you just instantly duplicate your original object. So let me duplicate, and actually I will change the layer order, so make it at first, rename it. This will be the ZRemesher object, and there's a reason why we have this original, so I will just rename it to original. I think it will be easier to follow. So ZRemesher model will actually replace this one, and once we have the ZRemesher model created, then we can use the original one as a base for our projection, because we have to combine ZRemesher and projection to get the best result. But for first, please take a look at the ZRemesher. So ZRemesher model is selected. We are going to geometry, and we have a couple groups here, and if I'm turning this off, this is how it looks. So this is the full figure. We have plenty of details. A couple polygroups are presented. If you don't know what polygroups are, there will be a section about polygroups and different how to use them. But right now, what we want to take a look at the ZRemesher itself. Now, if we have a model that is symmetrical, make sure that symmetry is enabled before you're hitting on ZRemesher. Now, the default setting is, this was also 50, that's the default. And target polygon count is about 5. Now, when I hit ZRemesher, it will spend some time calculating the new model. So as you see, here's the progression bar, and here we go. This is what happened. So I have a lower resolution model, which one is good. So I have a lower resolution model that see no main problems. So there is no open areas, there is no nests and stars and other shapes like that. So it's a quite clean work. Uh, don't forget, this was automated, and even at this low resolution, so I have 13,000 polygons, so it's not really a high number. I think it will be easy to pose, so I like this one as a first. But before accepting it, uh, let me walk through a couple of these settings. Now, as you see, the color changed. If I'm pressing Ctrl Z to undo the operation, these are my original colors. Now, these colors are the polygroup ID colors. If I want to keep these, I will hit on Keep Groups. Now, if I'm enabling Keep Groups and using ZRemesher again, but this time I will just even lower. Oh no, just crank it up a little bit higher. So 5 was relatively low. Let me change it to 7 and hit ZRemesher and take a look at the results. So keep groups is enabled. I want to keep my groups. it makes life easier on the modeling phase and correction phase. So right now the groups are copied, and the target polygon count set to 7, and the results changed from 13,000 to 17,000. Okay, not bad. Let me see the details around the fingers. It's good. It's quite nice. So I think we should keep that number 7. Now, what happens if you are clicking on something else? For example, if you're clicking on double, same, or half, what these things are doing us. So if you are clicking on same, this target polygon count will be grayed out, and it will try to rebuild with the original number of polygons. Now, it's quite rare you need this. So 90% you will try to reduce polygon size instead of keeping it at the same. If you want to keep it at the same, there's a chance you want to make some corrections and nothing else. So in that case, it might work, but usually it's not really a good idea. Double, it's just increases the number of the polygons half, it splits to half, and that's it technically. But we have a new slider that makes things much more interesting. So let me turn off same, and let me turn target polygon counts back to 5, because that's the default. So selecting it and back to 5, and adapt is turned on. Adaptive density is a good feature, keep it on. You can adjust it if you wish later on, but at the beginning it's really not necessary. And let me undo the operation, and let me change adaptive size instead of 50 to 0. Okay, so ZRemesher, and now the results will be quite different. So the results will be different because if you have adaptive size at 0 level, that means most of the polygon sizes will be uniform. So even at the hand, it will try to build up the fingers from much larger polygons because there is no room for adjustments for the software. So adaptive size 0 means polygon size is much more uniform. If we undo this and switch it to adaptive size 100 and using ZRemesher again, now we will get a kind of different result where we have really high density some areas and low density on others. Now, when this adaptive size is at 100, we have quite high density around the fingers, and usually quite high density around eyes or nose or whatever. In this case, there's not much, probably around the ears, but this is just a really rough model. As you see, we have a huge density change around the neck. But in 90%, most of the cases, it's just enough if you just keep it at adaptive size to 50. Okay, now keep groups enabled. Another thing, if you have troubles with the symmetry lines, for example, if you have these stars or other weird phenomenon going on in symmetry, you might want to try to use a different method to utilizing the ZRemesher. If you're holding Alt key and pressing on ZRemesher, it will use a different algorithm. So some cases, this little tiny difference will make the change, and it will make it work. Not all the cases, but in some situation, it will do the job. Now, as you see, in this case, it created a couple of triangles, so it's not really the best option. But a couple of things are looking good. Here, there's also a symmetry issue, so I don't think this algorithm has the benefit to use. So here also, so it's not the best idea. So I will keep with the standard ZRemesher solution. But again, in some situations, this is the point. Now, we have two other options to explore within ZRemesher. The one is a use polypaint, and the other is the ZRemesher curves, guide curves. So I'm pressing B, Z, and R. That is the ZRemesher guide brush, and it will create um, curves that can drive the polygon flow. Now let me create around the eyes. So we'll just, oh, it's way too big. Okay, I need another one here. Okay, that's right. We need another one around the chin. Okay, that's working fine. Somewhere around the chest. So to drive the direction here. So a couple guide curves, maybe around the center of the body to add more. Okay, now these curves are enough. This might help the ZRemesher to refine the polygon flow. So you don't want to use too many curves. I like to use only a couple at problematic areas because ZRemesher is not a super accurate topological tool. So if you want a perfect topology, you have to do it manually, and you can do it in ZBrush, but it's better if you're looking for other solutions. But for smaller parts like body parts or clothing, you can use the Z-spheres, for example, for retopologizing, but that's another thing. Um, so right now, these curves are there, and we can actually, if you click in Alt, you can delete these curves, Alt and clicking on a curve. Um, and now just let me use ZRemesher. So the curves will be inspected, and in our final model, these curves may take an effect. So we had a curve around here, and ZRemesher tried to build up on this curve. We had a curve around here, and ZRemesher also tried that one. It tried to follow this area, and we also had this section here. This one also try to use that. So let me undo this, and let me delete the curves. And the other feature I want to use, just let me turn Shift F, is polypaint. Now, when you are enabling polypaint, I will switch to a standard brush, BST, and as you see, there is no color assigned. So this is a simple Z add function, and I will enable use polypaint. Polypaint, when it's enabled, color density automatically sets to 2. That's kind of a mid-range, so it's mid-resolution. I have this standard brush enabled. RGB mode is turned on, and if I want to use a higher density, I will crank up color density to 4. Now it's a dark red. I will paint the face with this color. So I have this bright color, and I will lower the color density to 1, and maybe the chest don't need that much of a resolution, so, or okay, it's a lower resolution. And actually, which one is the lowest? 0.25 instead of that 1. Let me paint this with this blue color. Okay, now it's time to use the ZRemesher. So ZRemesher, and before I'm turning on the poly frame, let this ZRemesher process to be completed. Okay, I will change the color. Right now I don't use polypaint anymore, so it's just a general color. And if I'm turning on Shift F, this is the result. So at areas where I was using the high color density dark red color, so you don't adjust the color here, you're adjusting the color by changing the density. Okay, so this resulted in the face that has many more polygons, and there's less polygons on the chest. Okay, so it's a good option to use if you want to manually tweak your model. But as you see, ZRemesher takes some time. So if you are not using the default settings, you can spend quite some time with the adjustments. Okay, now going back to the original settings, I will undo this. I don't want to use polypaint, so I'll turn this off and Shift F. The polypaint is visible there, but actually it will be eroded. Keep groups is there. Target polygon counts, the best one that was working for us is the 7. And adaptive size is 50, that's correct. Curve strength, we don't care about curve strength because we have no guide curves. And this was not RGB, it will be turned back onto Z-add. And I will use the simple ZRemesher option. And this time I will keep this model. Alright, Shift F. So this is the model that I want to keep, but we are not ready yet. So if we are going back to the subtool, we have this ZRemesher model, and we also have this original model. Okay, so original model has way more details. So there's much more detail around the mouth, around the eyes, definitely around the ears. So what to do? Now first, ZRemesher will be selected. Under the ZRemesher, original is visible. So when ZRemesher is selected, I can create my new levels of subdivision. But before I start creating the new levels, I will project the model at first. So I'm hitting on project. It might take only a couple moments, and there's nothing really changes, but it is just kind of a safety project. So I want to check if there's any errors around the projection. I'm looking for pikes. So if you see something like this as a tiny pike, so something is pulled out, that might be a sign of projection error. Okay, so it's really exaggerated, but typically that happens. And now, once I have this first initial projection, I can use the subdivision tool. So I'm pressing Ctrl D to subdividing my model, and original is active again. I'm going back down on projection and clicking again project all. Okay, and now the change is significant. So with a new resolution, I have projected everything back onto the original model. So there's a definitive change. So going back up, pressing Ctrl D again, and doing again project all. Now I have 2,800 polygons, and let me check the fingers, for example. Okay, so I like this result. Alright, now this one is a high resolution model. Now we have 2080. So as a result, the ZRemesher model is a little bit higher, but I don't really have to worry about that because with Shift D I can walk down on the resolution. So now I have this low resolution model. I can walk back on to a higher resolution. I can even increase my resolution if I wish, and continue working, creating my paintings and everything like that. So Ctrl D again. That's my 1.1 million. That's fair enough to work with, and in this case it's quite detailed. When you're done with the Dynamesh section, you want to convert your model into a polygonal model to assess the different settings and the benefits of using polygons instead of the Dynamesh faces. Okay, so thank you very much and see you next time. Goodbye.